Imagine God asked you to do something that made absolutely no sense. Not something hard like climbing a mountain. Not something scary like facing an enemy. Something that would break your heart on purpose. That's exactly what happened to a man named Hosea. God didn't ask him to give a sermon. He didn't ask him to build anything or fight anyone. He asked him to marry a woman who would betray him, and to keep loving her anyway. This isn't just an old story buried in the Bible. It's one of the rawest, most human love stories ever written. And by the end, you'll understand why it's still breaking people open thousands of years later. This is the story of Hosea and Gomer. Let's set the scene. We're in the northern kingdom of Israel. Somewhere around 750 BC, things looked good on the outside. The economy was strong, the borders were mostly safe, people had money in their pockets. But underneath that shiny surface, something had rotted. The people of Israel had stopped worshiping God the way they were supposed to. They started chasing after other gods, statues, idols, fertility gods borrowed from neighboring nations. They told themselves it was harmless. Just tradition. Just culture. Just keeping up with the times. But God saw it for what it was, unfaithfulness. Like a spouse who starts small. A little flirting here, a secret there, and slowly builds an entire second life behind their partner's back. So God needed someone to deliver a message. Not just speak it but live it. He chose a man named Hosea. And then God said something that must have stopped Hosea cold. Go, take yourself a wife who has been unfaithful, and have children who reflect that unfaithfulness, for the land itself has turned away from the Lord. In plain English, God told Hosea to marry a woman named Gomer, a woman known for being unfaithful. Some accounts suggest she may have already been involved in a life of prostitution or promiscuity before they even met. Let that sink in for a second. This wasn't a metaphor Hosea got to just talk about from a safe distance. God was asking him to live it. To walk into a marriage with his eyes open, knowing heartbreak was likely waiting on the other side. Why would God do that? Because sometimes words aren't enough. Israel had heard 1,000 sermons about unfaithfulness. They needed to see it. They needed a living, breathing picture of what it looks like when someone loves you completely, and you keep walking away anyway. Hosea said yes. He married Gomer. And for a little while it probably looked like an ordinary life. They had a son together, and God told Hosea to name him Jezreel, a name tied to judgment on Israel's ruling house for past bloodshed. Not exactly a name you'd pick for a baby shower. Then came a daughter. God told Hosea to name her a name that means not loved or no mercy. A gut punch of a name, meant to symbolize how far Israel had drifted, to a place where God said, in effect, I'm not going to keep shielding you from the consequences of your choices. Then a third child, a son. His name meant, not my people. 3 children. 3 names that were really messages spelled out for an entire nation to read. You have drifted so far that the relationship itself is in danger. And somewhere in the middle of all this, the marriage, the kids, the names, Gomer began to slip away. Here's where the story gets painfully human. Gomer didn't stay. We don't get a play-by-play of every choice she made. But the picture that emerges is clear. She left Hosea for other lovers. Some accounts suggest she returned to the very lifestyle she'd been rescued from. Try to picture what that actually felt like for Hosea. This wasn't some abstract lesson to him anymore. This was his wife. His children's mother. The woman he'd built a home with. And she was gone, chasing after men who didn't love her, who wanted to use her, not cherish her. Meanwhile, God is using this exact heartbreak to say something to Israel. This is what it feels like when you do this to me. Every time Israel bowed to another god. Every time they traded God's faithfulness for something that felt shinier or easier. This is the pain it caused. Not a distant, unbothered deity shrugging it off. A wounded lover, watching the one he cherished walk toward things that would only hurt her. Gomer's story didn't get better. It got worse. She ended up in a position of degradation. Some scholars believe she may have literally been sold into slavery, perhaps after being abandoned by the men she'd left Hosea for. The very freedom she thought she was chasing turned into a cage. This is often how it goes, isn't it? And here's where the story could have ended, the way so many stories do. Hosea could have divorced her. Under the law of that time, he would have been completely justified. Nobody would have blamed him. He'd already given more than anyone could reasonably ask. He could have moved on, found someone new, rebuilt a quieter life. But God had one more instruction for him. God said to Hosea, "Go again, love a woman who is loved by another man and has been unfaithful, just as the Lord loves the people of Israel, though they turn to other gods." So Hosea went and found Gomer, likely at a slave auction, given the account of him paying a price for her. And notice he paid for her. Silver. Barley. He bought back the woman who had left him, who had humiliated him, who had chosen everyone and everything over him. He didn't demand she grovel first. He didn't make her earn her way back through some probation period of proving herself. He simply paid the price to bring her home. Picture that scene for a second because it's staggering when you really sit with it. A man walking into a place of shame, finding the woman who broke his heart standing in chains, and instead of turning away, he pays whatever it costs to set her free and bring her home. That is the picture God wanted Israel and honestly all of us to see. Because this is exactly what God was saying about himself. I know you've chased after other things. I know you've broken this relationship over and over. And I am still willing to pay whatever it costs to bring you home. This is where the story stops being just about Hosea and Gomer, and becomes something bigger, a preview really of a love that would show up centuries later in an even more dramatic way. A love willing to pay the ultimate price, not because the beloved earned it, but simply because love doesn't calculate first. Just shows up. Hosea brought Gomer home. He asked her to live with him faithfully, to leave her old life fully behind, not as a punishment, but as the beginning of something restored. And through this whole ordeal, God's message to Israel became clear. I am not finished with you. Even after everything, even after the idols and the wandering and the betrayal, the door was still open. Restoration was still possible. Love hadn't run out. So what do we actually take from a story this old, this strange, this uncomfortable? Few things. First, love that's only there when it's easy isn't really love. Hosea's love for Gomer meant something because it survived betrayal. Anyone can love someone who never lets them down. It takes something entirely different to love someone after they've hurt you, and choose them again anyway. Second, chasing what looks exciting can quietly become a cage. Gomer wasn't running toward freedom. She just thought she was. So many of us do the same thing, trading something steady and real for something that glitters for a moment and costs us everything later. Third, and maybe most important, nobody is too far gone to be brought home. Gomer wasn't rescued because she'd cleaned herself up first. She was found in the middle of her mess, in chains, and brought home anyway. If this story says anything to modern ears, it's that being at your lowest point isn't the end of your story. It might just be right before someone comes looking for you. This story has echoed for thousands of years because it isn't really about Hosea and Gomer at all. It's about all of us, the ways we wander, the things we chase that end up costing more than we bargained for, and the almost unbelievable idea that we might still be loved enough for someone to come looking, and pay whatever it takes to bring us home. So the next time you feel like you've wandered too far, made too many mistakes, or burned too many bridges to ever go back, remember Gomer, standing on that auction block. And remember that love came looking for her anyway.